All right, Ben Vereen, we've got some magic to do for the audience that is here to pay tribute and honor to you. But I probably first need to start. Let's be honest. Lots of folks are disappointed that you're not here in the room with us. You were to be. Truth is, you are in Romania, of all places. So
right.
What happened?
I'm here in Romania doing a film. And, movies go. The schedule got messed up and they had to, because of the strike, they had to move the dates. And boom, I'm here. I can't get out. And we had it on the book. My bags are packed. We're ready to get to the airport. And they said last minute, they said, we can't let you go. And so I am more disappointed than you are.
Well, we probably all are, but at least you're here with us now, and we're going to share about your life.
I'm here with you technically, but spiritually, I'm there with you.
Appreciate that. All right, Ben, let me take you back to a date you don't remember, October 10th, 1946, when Benjamin Augustus Vereen comes into the world, the first and only child of James and Pauline Vereen. And your parents were not the kind to stir things up in those days. They just wanted a good life for their family. I think they called you Bunny. And one day you get a knock on the door from the Star Time Dance Studio. Tell us about those days.
So you want to start from the Herkimer Fulton Street, when the gentleman from Star Time Dance Studio came down the block and he was looking for, it was 1950s. What they were doing with, integration was just beginning to start in New York. And so we had lived in what they call the ghetto. We called it the upper ghetto because we had a supermarket. But anyway, that's another story, another interview. So this guy comes on the block, he points at me, of all people, and asks me where my mother's home. And I said, yeah, she's upstairs. So he goes upstairs. Next thing I know, my mother's called me upstairs, and this kid's gonna be a good star. And next thing I know, I was in a cab going up the hill to Star Time Dance Studio, and I was in the baseball and hanging out with the girls, but they had some cute girls in the dance department. So I said, okay, I'll hang. So I ended up going to Star Time Dance Studio, but I wasn't really into it. I was more into the church and into hanging out on the street, hanging with the boys and girls, It wasn't my thing. It wasn't until junior high school, really, that I first saw my first Broadway show, or was in a Broadway production, wasn't on Broadway. It was called The King and I. And Dr. Hill, my homeroom teacher, directed it, and Dr. Bartholomew conducted it with a 50-piece all-black orchestra, all-black cast. This is 1956. I'm like, wow. It was ridiculous. And and what happened was Benjamin Raskin, the principal, saw me, and he suggested I go to the High School for the Performing Arts in Manhattan. Now, you got to understand something. My life was Brooklyn. I got people in Brooklyn today. I go back and I say, you want to come see my show? I said, where's this? It's in Manhattan. I said, no, I ain't going. So I thought when they said Manhattan in those days, I thought I needed a passport to get across the bridge because I knew I was not leaving Brooklyn. Ended up in Manhattan, High School Performing Arts, 46th Street.
And the truth is, at that time, there were not a lot of young Black people in the school. So was it the times were changing? They were looking for African-American kids.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, they were looking for boys. It was dance. The guys were hanging out in the dance department. And so they were looking for boys. The fact that I had to be Black was unfortunate, but at that school prior to me coming was a gentleman named Arthur Mitchell. There's a beautiful picture of him dancing, leaping in the air. I saw it on the back wall, just blew my mind. So there was encouragement. There was a lot, there were people. There was Bernice Johnson, there was Lester Wilson. We were not invisible. There was Alvin Ailey, we were not invisible. So by me coming to the school that day, it's just the fact that they needed boys. And I was blessed to be one of the guys happened to show up that day.
Well, as you said, church was important to you. In the early 60s, you put a gospel group together called Sensational Twilights. You were like 18 years old. Those were special times in your life for several reasons. But first, tell me about the Sensational Twilights.
It was the Banks family. Ronald Banks and his mother, his father. The mother was a wonderful missionary, and the father was a deacon, and he could play guitar, organ. He could play pretty much every instrument. And he had a little family, and we used to hang out. And so we started singing, and the father had this idea, said, let's put the family together, start the Sensational Twilights of Brooklyn. And it was great because that was right around the time of Sam Cooke, Soul Stirrers. So he became my hero. And I was trying to sing like Sam Cooke. And it was so cool because all the guys in those days were processed hair. That was the thing, it was a processed hair. You know, in all the quartet groups, they go,
right.
and watch the guys go in and they tear up the church. They come out and break up a bottle of Christian Brothers brandy, drink it, close it, let's go back in church and get them. It was some good days.
Well, it was during this time, I think this is true, you met Andrea Townsley. She was the daughter of Bishop Young herself, and you all got together. And in fact, that's when your son Ben Jr. came around.
That's right. We got married and had a son. And he was a bishop of the church, her father, and Nathaniel could play the organ. That church was St. Mark's Holiness Church. It was, the place was packed. You know, matter of fact, Harry Belafonte's background singers used to sing at the church. It was an amazing time. And we got married and had a son, and it was good times.
But you also, it wasn't tough to make it in those days, and you had a tough decision. It was sort of, do you stay with the family and do it, or do you go off and try and make a career for yourself?
It didn't work out. We were young, we were babies, didn't work out. And I remember getting on a train in New York and subway, and going to a place, 46th Street, right down the street from the school. And used to have newsstands. And he had a paper called Backstage or Showbiz, which was pretty much a trade paper. And I was broke, so I leaned against the newsstand and opened up the paper and saw an audition for a show called Sweet Charity at the Palace Theater, which is right around the corner. So I said, well, geez, I think I'll go to this audition. And I went in, and if you've seen the movie All That Jazz, it's like the opening of All That Jazz. Every male dancer in New York City was on that stage. And down the middle of the aisle comes a gentleman who changed my life. His name was Bob Fosse. Came walking down the aisle. I'll never forget the day I saw him. He had on a khaki shirt and khaki pants and rolled up sleeves and smoking a cigarette and hush puppy shoes. He got on stage and he said, "Thank you for coming. And we're doing a show called Sweet Charity. It's called in Las Vegas." And I didn't know where Las Vegas was. You might have said Europe. And then we're only going to need 10 of you. So here's the step. And he went to the combination while he was smoking his cigarette, right? And the ashes never fell. We didn't learn the combination because he was so smooth, the ashes didn't fall. They said, okay, do it. We went, what? Do what? This guy was so smooth. Had an assistant named Eddie Gasper who taught us some routine, and we got it. And he had a process where he'd have 4 dancers dance at a time, and he'd do a process of elimination. And then after the elimination, you'd have to sing. Now, I'd never seen a Broadway show, except when I was on, The King and I, when I was in junior high school. And now I'm listening to real Broadway singers for the first time. Oh, play said, come right behind the red. I'm gonna live. These guys are big voices. And they called my name. I said, yeah, they had a song called Blue Skies. If you didn't know you have a song, you sing Blue Skies. So I go, oh, okay. Blue Skies. They go, blue skies, smile, you got me. They called my name. They said, whatever. They said, do you know Blue Skies? I said, I've heard it a few times. And so I started singing. And I went into my thing, blue skies, smile at me. Bob stopped. He said, wait a minute. Take that from the top. Went, blue skies, smile at me. He said, great. Can you sing that a cappella? And I'd never been to Mexico. So but I got the job. And then history.
And the truth is, Bob Fosse, we're going to talk about it. He comes back in your life from time to time. This is not a one and done with Bob Fosse.
He was a friend. First day of rehearsal, he stopped rehearsal and they called my name and he said, Benjamin, sing Blue Skies. Yeah, good memories.
I know somebody that you sort of looked up to in many ways as a performer was Sammy Davis Jr. And so you go to Vegas, you're in Sweet Charity, and Sammy Davis Jr. comes into your life and you get the offering of Golden Boy, but you talk about that.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. How long is this interview? This is going to be a mini series.
Yeah.
Sammy Davis, we were growing up in Brooklyn, there weren't many African Americans on stage, and on TV. there's Nat King Cole, and every now and then you see Ella Fitzgerald, and there's Beulah and shows like that. And there was the Ed Sullivan Show. And on the Ed Sullivan Show, you saw a guy named Sammy Davis and the Will Masterson Trio. And he did everything. This guy did everything. And in Brooklyn, it was right about the time of Dodgers and that sort of thing. And he was in one of the parades. I never met him, but now I'm in Las Vegas, and he was in Las Vegas with the Rat Pack. And he went on TV and he said, if there's a young African-American, young black man, young black or colored in those days, lived that long. That's another story. But anyway, he said, if there's a young man or a young woman who wants to be in the show business, I'll be more than happy to talk to him. And it took me like a week to get up my nerves. There was a place called Nero's Nook. It was a lounge in Caesar's Palace in those days. And everybody showed up there. I mean, Bill Cosby showed up there. Richard Pryor showed up there. Shecky Green showed up there. Everybody showed up there. Diana Ross to see the Checkmates. Sonny Charles and the Checkmates. And Sammy came in with about 50 of his closest friends. And I walked over to him and I said, may I talk to you? And he said, oh, yeah. He said, yeah. I said, I heard you on TV. He said, yeah, he talked to my secretary. And I went, what? But fortunate enough for me, Bob Fosse had me do Sweet Charity with Elaine Dunn at the Circles in the Square Theater in San Francisco. And what I didn't know, though, that Bob would come up and was watching the show, because I started doing a character called Daddy Brubeck in the show. And he hired me to go on the road with Cheetah Rivera on the road. And we won the road in Canada, in Montreal. And we got a telegram. Remember telegrams? You got to tell the young people about telegrams. They're pieces of paper. Matter of fact, back in the old days, guys used to come on bikes and hand you a telegram. You don't remember that. You're still a kid yourself. But this guy who comes and delivers a telegram. It was from Bob Fosse, wanting me to come be in the movie Sweet Charity, starring Shirley MacLaine. And I got excited, went down to Cheetah. I said, look, Cheetah, I got it from Bob. He said, I got one too. We're going to Hollywood, Hollywood. And there we were, off to Hollywood. I'll never forget walking on Universal set for the first time, because Spencer Tracy comes walking my way, and Katharine Hepburn and walking towards me, and all these stars are going, wow, I seen you guys on television. I seen you on television. And then comes Shirley MacLaine. Beautiful. I love Shirley. We're friends to this day. And then we got a word that Sammy was ill and was unable to do the movie. And I knew who was up for the part. Da-da. So I'm waiting for Bob Fosse to say, you're going out there, kid, you're coming back a star, with the line from 42nd Street. So I'm waiting. Bob's coming. He's getting closer and closer, and the door opens behind him, and who should come in a wheelchair? Sammy Davis Jr. He jumps out of the wheelchair. Hey, I'm here. And everyone goes, oh, Sammy. And they run around him, and I go sit in the car. I wasn't having anything to do with this guy. And he noticed me. And he'd have lunch with Shirley, and all the kids would go, oh, Sammy. And I'd be in the background like this. And so he sends up one of his henchmen. The guy says to me, Sammy wants you to have dinner tonight with you. He wants to join him for dinner. I said, yeah, in Little Santa Monica. It's going to be at 8:30. Yeah, okay. I was so excited. I said, wow, Sammy wants to have dinner with me. So I bought myself a brand new suit, gator shoes. There's gator shoes in those days. You got to explain to the kids what gator shoes are. Okay. And I get dressed, I go down, I'll get there at 7 o'clock. I'm there early, and I get to this little Italian restaurant. The guy goes, hey, where you going? I go, Mr. Davis, he's invited me for dinner. He goes, wait here. He looks on the list. And good thing my name was on the list, because he's about to say, not in here, you don't. He says, okay, come in. So I go in and sit in this restaurant. There's Johnny Carson, there's Bob Hope, there's Lucille Ball. I'm sitting at this long table by myself. And I was smoking in those days. I was like smoking, waiting. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10, no Sammy. So I decided to get up and leave. And people come in and look at me like I'm strange. Why is this black man sitting at this table by himself? And so I get up to leave, and who should walk in? Sammy with his 50 closest friends. He looks at me and says, "Oh, good, you came. Sit down." So I sit down between his next to his agent, and between his agent and his wife. And he says, "I'm doing a show called, I did it some years ago on Broadway. It's called Golden Boy. But things have changed in the black community. I needed somebody with a voice that's angry, someone that represents the black community, because the times are changing and we need, there's people in the streets." And his agent at that time goes, "Ask him for the job." He nudges me, "Ask him for the job." I went, "Okay." I said, "Mr. Davis," he said, "You got it. All right, you go. Okay, caviar, let's bring it in." Everyone starts eating. Next thing you know, I was in Golden Boy. I met my second wife.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you about, because I wanted to turn to the personal front. Sammy Davis Jr. is such a model in so many ways, the singer, the dancer, his talents. But he also ran into, at that time, in those days, he had married a white woman, and you meet Nancy Bruner, who was also white. And I'm sort of curious, it's almost for you, the racial issues, whatever. It's just, you don't want that to become an issue. How did it play during that time in your life?
You know something? We all are people, man. Under God's domain, we are people. And we all have our various issues. In this country, yes, we do have the black and white issue. But the bottom line we are all God's people. I don't look at you because you're white and go, "Oh, you're a white man." I wonder how your character is. Are you a good person? I've always felt that way about, that's their issue. But are you a good person? And Nancy Bruner was a beautiful person. The issues, and I'm part, I help, I'm part of, I do the marches, I'm in the marches, I'm in the front line for justice, for equality for everybody. But it is about a black and white issue. We have yet to deal with the American Indians. We have yet to deal with a lot of issues of people. It's about, where does it begin when we begin to talk about the equality of spiritual existence in all people? Johnny Coleman taught me that, Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman. Yep. When are we going to get out of this humanness and into our spirituality? We keep praying about it, we keep talking about it, we go to churches and build up churches about it, but are we living it?
I can hear Martin Luther.
For you to have to ask me a question like that in 2023, we got a lot of work to do.
It's interesting how these days people still quote Martin Luther King, right? Judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm quoting me.
Well, back to your career where things...
If he said it, check this out. Someone told me, if you hear it twice, that's God talking to you.
You're number two.
Oh, people, wake up.
All right. Well, Golden Boy ends in 1969. Hair auditioning in LA at that time. You scrape up the funds. You got to get out there to audition. And it's interesting because given the comments you just made and what we talked about.
Nancy and I came back from London. And she had a little apartment. She was staying with her roommate, Monica. And I was over there one day, and a friend of hers named Joni Kovacs comes over. And Joni looks at me because I was in my English gear, my riding boots and shirt cut down on my belly button. I was what they call a black hippie, just sort of oxymoron. But anyway, and so she says, "You should try out for hair." Now, I'd heard about hair because a guy named Lamont Washington had unfortunately OD'd or something and burned himself up on LSD. So we heard about it in London. So we knew hair was happening in the universe. People were tired. They were screaming about equality. What happened? Anyway, so she said, "You should try for the show Hair." She said, "You have the right look." And so there was an audition for the LA company, directed by Tom O'Horgan, who changed the face of the theater. And I went down, and once again, it was like opening of all that jazz. It's the same thing, packed. And went through the audition. And Tom, he did he wouldn't do what you would call a Broadway audition, because he was more about behavior. He was more about doing things to bring out the inner you. to express yourself through your work. And so he do exercises. And I look up and I was doing the exercise. This guy was walking behind me looking at me. And next thing I know, Nancy and I were on a plane to Los Angeles to open at the Aquarius Theater in a show called Hair. That's what happened in Escape of Funds. The way we scrape up money, we had 2 bulldogs, Tammy and Missy. I always wanted a bulldog. And whenever we needed money, those puppets would throw litter. That wild. Anyway, it'll be in the book.
Out of curiosity, so Hair itself is about race and class and war and rebellion. Did that speak to you, or was it, you and I've talked before, or was it about working and employment?
That too. But the social consciousness of the country was in peril. There was so much going on, and you couldn't help but be caught up in it. And I met some great people. Matter of fact, it started with Sammy Davis Jr., with people like, Rap Brown and Stokely Carmichael, and those voices would be around, and so the consciousness was already there. And then when, you're Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, and people like that, you get in the Hair, you go into another direction, but it's all the same. So it's about, it's weird, we're still having this conversation about social justice, aren't we?
You carry on that message, though, if the world is correct. In 1970, you auditioned for a play about racial identity called No Place to Be Somebody, written by Charles Bourdain.
Oh, my God, Charles, yes, God.
And is this true? It's been reported he looked at you and said, "Where's your blackness? Where's the pimp?" In terms of how you were performing, how you were acting. Talk about that relationship with him.
Well, he was tough. Charles Bourdain was tough. He was a little light-skinned guy, and he wore a gun belt. He would put bullets inside his gun belt. And he came to the audition, and he says to me, all right, I was reading part of Johnny, who's a pimp. And I'd read it, and the stage manager, Tito, asked me to come back to meet Charles Bourdain. And I get to the theater, and here's a little guy. He's so I get up on stage and I do the scene. I had to point a gun at this guy called Sweets. And he says, and Sweets goes, "You're not going to kill me, Johnny? Yeah, I know more about you, blah, blah, blah." So I do it. He goes, "That's not the way I do it. Where's the blackness? Where's the black?" Because I was in Hair at the time. So he was saying, you lost all your blackness because you did Hair. Where's your blackness? He comes up, he takes a revolver, puts a bullet from his belt in the revolver, spins it around, hands it to me. He says, "Now you do it again and fire." I'm from Brooklyn. You're going to give me a loaded gun and tell me about my blackness? I don't know you, and you don't know me. So I did the scene, and I pointed that gun, and I was about to pull the trigger. He said, "You got the roll. You got the roll." But he's a great guy. Charles is great. Oh my God. Read the book. He's great.
And a little bit after that, somebody else in your life makes a difference. Tom O'Horgan calls you to play Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar. But here's the thing. I want you to talk about that, but then there's something really special that happened during that run. But first talk about Superstar.
I'm going to blow you a special surprise.
Yeah.
But as I told you, Tom O'Horgan, who really doesn't get enough credit, did call me. He sent me again a telegram, and he told me to pick up an album. You got to tell young people this; they don't know what this is. Album, and those days we had cassettes, and to learn the part of Judas. I was living in San Francisco with my wife, and we had 2 children by now, Malika and Naja, and so I go and I go to the audition. I fly to New York. I'm learning headphones. Then we have bugs in those. Then we had headphones. And it was the first time I flew first class. He sent me a first class ticket. They didn't know what to do with me. Walk on the plane, and the steward says, the airline stewardess says, yeah. I start to walk. She says, excuse me. I said, yeah. I said, my ticket. She said, no, you're in the back. I said, no, my ticket says first class. She goes, really? Come this way. I laughed all the way to New York City. Listening to my home bopping with my headphones on. So I learned the role of Judas. And that next day I had to go to the Mark Hellinger Theater. And there was Tom O'Horgan, Robert Stigwood, and a few other producers in there in the audience, the writers and composers. And I'm singing all day. Look at this song, I'm against everybody, it seems like. And then about the time Tom says, okay, let's adjourn to my office. And the producer says, no, we want him to sing against Carl Anderson, who was playing Judas on the Road. And Carl is a beautiful singer. My God. I didn't know him those days, but when I found out, man, amazing. So I had to wait for Yvonne Elliman, who played Mary, and Jeff Finho, who played Jesus. Thought he was Jesus, but anyway. Carl comes out and he sings this beautiful rendition of I Do Not Love Him. And about the time I was going to get up to sing it, this guy in the audience says, I'll play for him. He comes out in the audience, climbs up on stage, and he starts playing the piano. And I hear a chord I hadn't heard all day. And I turned to this gentleman, I said, excuse me, but that's not the song. That was Andrew Lloyd Webber. Didn't speak to me for 10 years. But Tom O'Horgan got me the role, and I went on to do Judas on Broadway. And I was sitting there in my dressing room. A lot of things happened during that time. But, a knock came on the door, and the stage manager says, Mr. Vereen, you have an envelope. And I said, okay, and he went, no, you have an envelope. And I go, give me the damn envelope, man. So I take the envelope and I'm reading it, and it says something about a Tony Award or something like that. I look at it, I go, who's Tony? I later found out. Because you see, I didn't get in the business for awards. I got in the business because I love the passion, the work, the people I've met.
Am I right that during the run of JC Superstar, somebody very important in your life saw you perform for the first time?
A lot of people did.
I'm thinking about your dad.
My dad, of course. Yeah, matter of fact, that was the first time, because James was a TV fanatic. He loved TV. He was just with 3 channels, a big, huge console. And he'd be sitting in front of the TV set, nodding off. In those days, they had 3 channels at about 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock. The channel go, boom. He'd be there nodding. And I'd say, when he turn it off, he'd go, don't touch that TV set. But he loved TV. He was devoted to it. I called it his church. TV, now, God, what to do? Thank you. Look at that. Wow. Oh, God, look at that. Ooh, yeah. Look at this, Pauline. He was into it. So when I got into show business, he didn't care. But then one day I looked up and there was James. And I'm doing the show and I'm finishing it. And, we our costumes, I had to wear briefs and things, because I did Tom O'Horgan, you do nudity. And so the show was over and he comes backstage with my mother and I said, Dad, what'd you think? He said, boy, you better put some clothes on. You get cold out there. Pauline, let's go get a shirt.
And then a professional role, Bob Fosse comes back into your life with the role that would change, I think, your professional life. And it would get you that Tony Award and that memorable sprint you did up to the stage to accept your award. But talk about playing the leading role in Pippin. It was a career changer for you.
Okay. I'd heard about Pippin. By this time, I've gone to Las Vegas. By this time, I'm starring on Broadway in Jesus Christ Superstar. And for the first time, I'm in the New York Times. And I guess I'm getting some recognition, and meeting friends and going to various clubs and singing and carrying on. And I hear about Bob Fosse doing Pippin. And I called him and I said, I don't know, I said, I wanted to show him how much I'd grown. I'd done my first time act in San Francisco, and it got rave reviews by John Wasserman. The headline was How a Star is Born. And I felt, let me show Bob Fosse what I could do. I didn't expect to get the show. And I ended up at the audition. I wore the same blue suit. I went to Sammy's dinner with, same gator shoes. And I sang for him. And he said, that's good. He said, good. He said, he gave me a script. He said, the piece of paper. He said, go downstairs and learn this monologue. Oh, best you can. That was the opening monologue. So I came back up on stage. I read the monologue. He said, okay, we'll be in touch. So I leave. I didn't expect to get it. And next thing I know, he's calling and saying, we want you to do the show Pippin. And so I went to my agent at the time, and it was William Morris. I said, Bob Fosse wants you to do Pippin. He said, I wouldn't do it. He said, it has the chance of that show making is about 10%. And I said, well, if Bob's going to do it, I'm going to do it. And went to rehearsal, and sure enough, I'm sitting there reading, and it was like the opening monologue, and then I sit there and go, enter Charlemagne, enter Louis, paper, 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 enter Louis, paper, paper, paper. There was no role. And Bob was sat across and looking at me laughing. And he said, okay, lunch. And everybody leaves and comes over to me and says, don't worry about it. And we created a leading player.
Not surprising that role was created for you. It is you. I mean, it just magical. Your performance is magical in that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's leave Broadway for a moment and talk about the TV world. I could go on forever listing from Mr. Cellophane on The Muppets, French Prince of Bel-Air, I mean, all these things. But our audience would be disappointed if we didn't get some reflection from you on playing, of course, Chicken George, 1977, one of the most classic miniseries of all time, Alex Haley's Roots.
There's another
Talk
one.
about that, because that had to really impact your life as well.
There's another one. There's another one. Went to my agent. I had to get a new agent. And I said to him, there's a book out called Roots by a guy named Alex Haley. It was in Reader's Digest. I said, I'd like to audition for it. Ben. I love that stuff. Ben, you're a song and dance man. And you're great. But they're looking for actors. He said, look, there's a show opening in Chicago. They want you to perform your act there. There's a group of these kids who just got a record called We Are Family, Sister Sledge. So there'd be an opening act. I said, okay. So I go to Chicago, we did great shows. The Sister Sledge were slayers. They killed it. And then I went down to Savannah, Georgia. And in those days, I was doing a character named Bert Williams about the Black oppression of performers, how we got onto the stage, what people don't know about, but that's another story. But at one time, we weren't allowed on the American stage after slavery, unless we wore blackface. So I did a parody on that. And after the show was over, a knock came on the door, and Savannah was not an easy place in those days. And this guy knocks on the door, and I open it, and his name was Stan Margulies. And he looks at me and he goes, my name is Stan Margulies. I'm here doing a TV show called Roots. I'd like you to be my Chicken George. I didn't know what Chicken George was. I didn't care. This guy wanted me to do Roots. He was a producer. I wanted to be in Roots. And that's how it all started.
But it's a role that impacted a lot of people, right? And didn't one day you go sort of see Chicken George's grave and such?
That was later. But here's the thing. Did not do Roots for what it became. We're grateful for what it became, and thank you to people for making it the legendary TV series that it is to this day. Show your children. continue to show your children. When I was coming up to school, there was one paragraph. You're a slave and Lincoln frees you. Now, everybody knows that's not true. When Alex Haley, after writing Malcolm X and various great autobiographies, decided to go back to Gambia, to Jufure, to find his roots. And then he decided to get on a ship, the hull of the ship, to feel what it was, simulate what it must have been like to come across at the bottom of the ship, and wrote this book. My want was to do this so that we had because understand, so Hitler and his craziness, okay? Hitler was such an egotistical maniac. He filmed everything. During slavery, we didn't have film, it was word of mouth. Our crossing about was the Holocaust, also a Holocaust I'm talking about. We didn't have film. We didn't have word of mouth. And don't read the book, you don't know about it. This man wrote the book, and not only that, ABC had the courage to put it on the air. And I'll never forget this. It was just before that, Rich Man, Poor Man had been on the air. And they said it was tanking. And some of the executives said, we got this show about Black people. What are we going to do? And some executives said, I got an idea. Put it on in a week and get rid of it. And that turned the key. Because everybody was glued to the TV sets. I didn't know about it. My wife and my mother-in-law and my kids were up in Hollywood, were watching it on TV. And I get a call from ABC. They wanted me to do the American Music Awards to introduce something. And I said, it was right after Roots had aired. As a matter of fact, it was the last day of Roots. And so I said, sure. So I got dressed in my tux. I go down to the theater. And there's Merv Griffin. And Merv says to me, he says, congratulations. I went, okay, thank you. And so the curtain opens, standing ovation. I turned to Merv and I started applauding him for his body of work. He looked at me and said, no, that's for you, Chicken George. I went, oh my God. Oh my God. What have we done? And that's when everything turned upside down.
You changed culture for sure. I can't take a look at Broadway and TV without just a quick nod to the silver screen. 1979, you are in All That Jazz, a movie by Fosse about Fosse. What a tip of the hat it is for you, right? I mean, to give to Fosse for all he's meant in your life. Talk about the experience of being part of that really interestingly created movie, All That Jazz.
I was playing the MGM Grand with a guy named Flip Wilson. And Fosse calls and says, Ben, I want you to be a part of this movie, All the Jazz About My Life, blah, blah, blah. So I said, sure, man. So I come in, and it was for one day shoot. It was the MC, and they had me dressed up, I had a gold thing. And I shoot the MC, the talk host part. I go back to Vegas. And Bob calls and said, Ben, I'm stuck for an ending. I only need you for a week. Just 1 week. I said, Bob, I'm working in Vegas. I don't have the time. He said, no, just 1 week. 3 to 4 weeks later, we finished the movie. And I'll never forget the night of he shot a screening. And when we saw, I was sitting there with some pretty heavy hitters. And the ending came, he had killed himself, predicted his death. He turned to me and he said, what do you think? I said, I got to go for a walk. The room got real silent. Little did I know that he was predicted his death in that film. And when it happened,
tough moment.
He's a good guy.
Great portrayal.
He is, because his spirit is still with us.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, Ben, I do want to spend just a moment on a very difficult part of your life, because everybody remembers this back in 1992. You're 46. career again on the rise. And I'm talking about the car accident that you that created such a challenge for you, something people thought you'd never survive, you'd never come back from, but you did in a big way. Talk about that experience. And in fact, if the research is right, Gregory Hines may have made a big difference in a bit of your comeback.
Yeah, I'd seen Gregory before that happened. And I'd met a woman named Johnny Coleman, a guy named Michael Beckwith, spiritual leaders. And my children were in Jersey. Yeah, I'll save that. So I don't remember too much. All I remember is waking up in hospital. And they tell me that I got in my car, because Michael Jackson invited me to his rehearsal. I got in my car and they said I hit a tree and hit my head on the roof of the car. I was walking home from my manager's, at the time, my manager's house. It was called Coral Canyon. And because I used to do power walks up and down Malibu with PH1 all the time. And so I guess I decided I'd walk home, and I was walking home, I had a stroke and was hit by a truck. 3 accidents in one day.
But you worked for months at physical therapy and such.
Yeah, I went to physical therapy. It was, doctors said I wouldn't do what I do. They said it was over. And I try to tell people, there's another doctor on the case. The doctors are doing their brilliant work. And they'll tell you, we'll do our work, but it's up to you. What does that mean? It's up to the spirit inside of you. How much do you believe in your divine one called God, Allah, Buddha, whatever? But you got to do the work. A lot of people say, I pray to God, but you don't do the work. God's going to take care of this. God is going to show up unless you show up too. So we make a long story longer. I ended up in a place called Kessler in New York City and New Jersey. And it was run by a lady named Bonnie Evans. I had some great therapists. One of my therapists' name was Jerry Lewis. Not the Jerry Lewis, but Jerry Lewis. And my orderly's name was Juice, whose real name was Glenn Miller. And I had a guy there who's in a wheelchair, been shot. His name was Michael Jackson. So, so anyway, I wanted to see what the doctor said I wouldn't do again. They looked at me and they said, forget about singing and dancing. It'll be 3 years if you'll ever walk again. So on my birthday of that year, they wanted to ask me what I wanted to do. And I said, I'd like to see Jelly's last year. Yeah, I can see what I'm not going to ever do again. And after Greg gets his bows and he's standing ovations, stops and he introduces me in the audience. Tears are coming down. I just had another operation, had a neck brace on. I was on canes. And he comes out and he says, after the audience leaves, he says, say hi. And he looks at my manager at the time and he says, when will he be ready? You know what? He said, when will he be ready? He said, Keith David is leaving the show on April 3rd. If he can be ready, he's got the role. That turned the key. There's another key turners in my life, haven't I? So I went back up to Kessler and I had a trach. They'd taken my spleen. I had a broken left femur. I had a stroke on my right side. I was in bad shape, bad puppy. And I went up to Bonnie Evans. I couldn't talk. I went, whoa. She said, oh, I will go see her. So she and Jerry Lewis, my therapist, they go down, and my occupational therapist, Karen, they go down to see Jelly's last jam. And I'm sitting in my hospital room at Kessler Rehab, and I'm waiting for them to give me their verdict on if we could do this or not. You know that pause? That pause, and you're anticipating something, and it's going to, in your head, you're going to this. They're going to say no. I know they're going to say no. And I've been praying and carrying. I've been meditating. And she looked at me, and Jerry looked at me and said, we can do this. And 10 months later, I walked on stage and shot the last jam, which was sponsored by Lexus. Packed. I mean, the standing room, people were it was standing room. And I invited all the doctors from Los Angeles who said I wouldn't do it again. They were right down front row. I had to come down a steep walker. They had this plank, and I had to walk like I was walking from heaven. It was amazing. Got to read the book.
When you rep here in a second, Ben, but when you look back on your career and you're still going strong. You're writing book. You're doing movies. I get all of that. But the names that you toss around like, Sammy Davis Jr., Gregory Hines, kind of like, but for us, it's an incredible thing to hear. These are legends in the industry. When you think back about your life, Bob Fosse, who influenced you the most? Who made Ben Vereen, aside from the talent of Ben Vereen today?
I had a teacher named David Woods in performing arts. And David would say, learn from everything you see. And I guess that became like my mantra. I've worked with so many brilliant people. I've been blessed and am blessed. And I've taken a piece from this one, a piece from that one, a piece from this one. I can't say just one. I got to say they all have influenced me. Sammy, Frank, James Earl Jones, Brock Peters, they all have done incredible. Lena Horne, my God, I met Lena Horne and fell on my knees. Ella Fitzgerald, come on. These people have been like, Cab Calloway? Come on. They all have had such an impact on me. But I guess everyone is sitting here going, Sammy Davis. Yeah, Sammy was a big part. How could he not be? How could he not be? What he did for us as a people and for the world of entertainment, his praises have to be lifted higher and higher. Sammy went through things that I didn't go through, but he opened the door for me. And he's the back on whom I'm standing. I'm hoping those I'm standing on my back because of a guy named Sammy Davis Jr. and all those great performers back then. So I can't really say one particular one. They've all been a piece of who Ben Vereen is today.
So here's the tougher question. We now know all those people make Ben Vereen. As Ben Vereen and other people come up with what impact has Ben Vereen made on the world, the country, the arts? What impact have you made that you're most proud of?
Employment.
Well, you've been employed.
Through my work, I've had the opportunity the people who've allowed me, my audiences, who've allowed me to do what I do, have the Porchlight Theater. Your audience is there, who are keeping the theater alive, who are supporting the arts, are allowing me, others like me, to do what we do for you.
Well, maybe we can tap into you doing something that is you for us, because among the roles you did after all that accident and recovery and stuff was behind you. You did a musical version of Christmas Carol, so many different things. But one magical show you were in my view, you were in Wicked on Broadway. You played the wizard. Might you do something for us as we wrap up our time together?
I would love to. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to, first of all, support the Porchlight Theater and to do this for me. And I know this is very difficult. It's difficult for me having to be here in Romania because, the way things worked out. I'm still upset about it. I'm upset because my people there work so hard at the Porchlight Theater. The kids, their dreams, perform for me, and I'm unable to be there with them. I want to let them know I'm there with them in spirit, and one day I will see their beautiful work. But I want to thank you personally for taking time out to do this for us. So bravo to you, sir. And the song I'm going to sing from Wicked is a song that I feel reflects just those words. I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow. And if we let them, then we help them in return. Now, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I am who I am today because I knew you. Like a comet blown from orbit as it passes the sun, stream met by a boulder halfway through the woods. Who can say if I have been changed for the better? Because I knew you. I have been changed for good. It well may be that we may never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say, before we part, so much of me is made of what I have learned from you, and you'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. Now, whatever ways our stories end, just know you have rewritten mine by being my friends. Like a ship blown from its mooring by a wind off the sea, seed dropped by a wild bird in the distant woods. Who can say if I have been changed for the better? Because I knew you. Because I knew you. I have been changed for good. And just let me clear the air and ask your forgiveness for those things that you blamed me for. But then again, we know there's blame to share, but none of it seems to matter anymore. Like a comet blown from orbit as it passes the sun, seed dropped by a wild bird in the distant woods. Who can say if I have been changed for the better? Because I knew you. Because I knew you. I have been changed for good. Thank you.